Hi, everybody. Lawyer Autumn Witt-Boyd here. I am coming at you today with part one of a two-part series that we are going to do about taking your business online. So if you have been thinking, I either already sell products or I already sell services or I have an idea, I haven't started selling yet, but I want to do it online, I am here for you. And if you don't know me already, hello, I'm so glad to meet you. I am a lawyer. I'm based in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and together with my law firm, we work for the top names in online business. So our clients are mostly coaches, consultants, and course creators. They sell digital products, they sell services, and some of them sell physical products also. So we've been doing this for about 5 years now. We are well versed in best practices for running an online business. So today, in part one of this series, I'm going to walk you through how or what you might want to sell online. And if you're watching live, say hello, drop an emoji or a comment. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can. We're going to be talking about setting up your website the right way, and we are going to be talking about figuring out just kind of the basics of getting started. So today, as I said, part one is going to be basics focused on mostly your website and getting up and running. Next week, we're going to talk about some more topics about actually before you go live, what are some of the key legal things you need to be doing. So here are some examples of business owners, business types that might be thinking about moving online. So with COVID-19, I'm recording this in May of 2020. We have a lot of retail shops that have been closed or they're only allowed to open very limited ways. So we see a lot of retail shops, they've got merchandise that people still want moving into e-commerce or even, moving into an online format where maybe they're helping customers shop and then they package it up, put it together, and, they're doing kind of curbside pickup. I'm also seeing a lot of in-person service providers moving to virtual. So a great example of this, I have a friend whose kids took piano lessons. Their teacher has now moved the lessons online. And I think what we're going to be seeing is some of this has been driven by the necessity of COVID-19, but I think some of it may continue just because the convenience is so great. I think your customers may find that they really like working with you in an online capacity. So something to think about, piano teacher or a creative service provider. So we'll talk about if maybe you're a web designer or graphic designer, or copywriter, those more creative fields can move online very easily. Another example would be if you're a consultant or an expert in some area, you maybe typically would go into a business and help them fix a problem. You may be able to package up that expertise and teach it in an online course or a digital product. So where you're not interacting with people one-on-one, or maybe you are still, but it's in a Facebook group or it's in an online forum. It's in an online platform rather than an in-person. And that could be for business to business or business to consumer. I have several clients who are personal trainers or yoga teachers. So again, moving that expertise into just a different kind of offering. So the first thing I want you to think about if you are thinking about moving your business online is your business model. And I know this is not where anyone wants to start. We all want to start with creating a beautiful website or getting into digital marketing. But really, this is the place that we have to begin. It's funny, I had a conversation with a client recently, a few weeks ago, who she's a very successful business owner. She has both an online business and a retail business, and she had a new idea, and she wanted to talk about all the things she needed to do to protect it legally. But my first question for her was, what's your business model? What exactly are you selling? Because we have to figure out what we're selling, how we're pricing it, how we're packaging things up to figure out what legal protections we really need, what's important. So that's really what you've got to sit down and figure out first. And this could be, opening a Google Doc, sketching out some ideas. Maybe it's a spreadsheet. Maybe you're more of a mind mapper. Maybe it's on a whiteboard. Maybe it's with Post-its. There's lots of different ways to do this. I'm certainly not a business model expert. But you have to have an idea of what you're going to sell and how you're going to sell it before we can get to what you need to do legally. So start by thinking, what products or services. It may be as simple as literally making a list. I do this with our law firm once or twice a year where I write down, here are all the things that we do. Here's how we price them. Are there things that are working well or that need to be adjusted? It's a really helpful exercise. So it's as simple as, what are your products and services? What is the price that it costs you to either buy them or create them or provide them? If you have a team, you want to factor that in. And then what is the price you're selling them at? So that's going to be your first step, figuring out what you're going to sell and kind of a general business model. So this may be a big change for you if, like in the example of an in-person provider moving to virtual, maybe you're just charging the same thing. Maybe the only thing that's changing is the platform. But if you are more someone who maybe was a high-priced consultant and you're changing to an online course type offer, or, a group coaching program, something like that, it's going to look kind of different. So I think it's worth sitting down and thinking about this. So the next thing, after you have a good idea of what you're going to sell, maybe you haven't settled exactly on a price. There's some research that goes into this. But you're probably thinking, okay, now I need a website if you didn't already have one. Now, some of this, if you have an existing successful business, you probably already have a website, but you may need to make some changes to it. So don't turn this off. Don't say, well, I don't need to hear about the website because I've got that covered. You may need to make some adjustments. But so you need to start thinking about the website is really now your storefront. And this is going to be a big change if you had, a web design agency with a beautiful location where people would come visit you, or if you're an in-person, maybe you're a retail shop. This now, the website is really where you're going to be doing business. So we need to make sure really looks are not as important as making sure that it's functional. And I will tell you, we just went through a big redesign of our website. Feel free, you can click on the link that you see below, awbfirm.com. Really, our goal with that was to make it a lot easier to shop. And now most people are shopping on their phones. So I want you to, as you're thinking about your website, think about it as being designed mobile first, because especially if you're doing any kind of digital marketing, if you're doing email marketing, people are not sitting in front of their computers as much as they are sitting in front of their phones. So it needs to definitely be functional on a mobile device or an iPad. So before you go, and if you don't already have a website, before you go spend a bunch of money and time and energy building a website, I want to plant a seed that in the first iteration of your online business, you may not actually need one. So if you don't have one already, it can be an area that takes a lot of time and can kind of be a rabbit hole, and it can make it slower for you to get started. And what I really want people to be doing right now is just getting started, getting their business online, starting to make some money again, or for the first time if you haven't before. So here are some ideas for ways that you could have an online business. You could be selling things, either services or products, without a website. So if you are a service provider and you've either got an existing client base or you've got, a good network, good contacts, really your first job is just to let them know that you're available. And a website primarily is going to be a marketing tool. So what if you could market without having a website? Or just, you could have a Facebook page, or you could have a LinkedIn page if it's really about credentials. So you can start by just emailing your network, emailing customers, or emailing friends and other potential people who could send business your way, and letting them know you're available. And then a lot of the services can be delivered over email. You don't necessarily have to have some fancy e-commerce website if you're a service provider. This was especially true for someone like a piano teacher who's just moving maybe to Zoom lessons or some other video type platform. So with restaurants, I've seen a lot of restaurants move to, pick up or take out orders or delivery. And so if you didn't already have a website, you may not need one. You may be able to just have a Facebook page, or you may already have a Facebook page where you can post information and people know to go look for it. Your hours, any policies about orders. You can also just put up your menu on third-party services like DoorDash, other delivery services. Now, they will take a cut of your revenues, so it may be worth, a small initial investment to have your own website where you could just, post your menu and tell people how to order. It doesn't have to have, you don't have to have the functionality for people to do online orders. You could literally just have a very simple 1 or 2 page website that has your menu with prices and says, call this number to place an order. That may work if you've already got customers who know and like your food. So think about that. Again, we already talked about if you're a teacher or like yoga teacher, dance teacher, piano teacher, you can use a platform like Zoom or another video conference. You could even do FaceTime. It does not have to be complicated to teach your classes. You can communicate by email. So you don't have to have a fancy website to get started. And then again, for my creatives, if you're a web or a graphic designer in that kind of area, you really don't need a website unless people are just checking you out. So you could just have a Facebook page that shares parts of your portfolio. There's actually here in Chattanooga, where I live, a really successful web designer who does not have her own website, which I think is kind of funny. But she has a beautiful Facebook page with links to her portfolio, so you can check out her work. She's got testimonials there, and it tells you how to hire her. So it can be as simple as that. If you're a retail shop selling physical products and maybe you just have, kind of a landing page that has your store hours and maybe some examples, but it's not full e-commerce, you could just update your existing website to say, call us with your credit card. We'll help you shop. We'll help you figure things out. You can do curbside pickup. So if you're not ready to totally move to an online, shipping and fulfillment and all of that, you could start in a soft way by doing that, or by putting it on your Facebook page again. Or Instagram. It doesn't have to be, I keep saying Facebook, but it could be really any social media platform where you already have a presence and where your customers already know you. So that's really the key in this initial stage, is just starting to let your existing customers know. Or if you're a new business, starting to let your friends and family and your extended network know that you're available, that you have things to sell. To truly be an online business, you will need to have a website that has capabilities of selling, especially physical products. If you really want to have an e-commerce business, you've got to be able to do the whole ordering process online. Typically, that's going to be an e-commerce website. You may have heard of Shopify. That's one option. Squarespace also has e-commerce integrations. There are also third-party platforms like Etsy. You can even sell things on eBay. There's lots of ways to sell things online. But all of those, it's kind of pay me now or pay me later. All of those platforms are going to take a cut. So you're either going to pay the expense, either in your time or hiring someone to set up an e-commerce website and pay those hosting fees and all of that, or you're going to pay a platform like Etsy for the privilege of, sharing their site and being hosted there. With a website, it is very easy to get overwhelmed. So that's why I just want to encourage you to get started as you're kind of testing and seeing if people want to buy from you online. I think it's really smart just to do something simple and quick to get started. Make sure that people want to buy from you, make it easy for them to do so. And then once you have kind of proof of concept, you can start getting into maybe a little bit more investment in setting up your own website, maybe doing e-commerce or something like that. But I think simple is great just to start. All right, so let's say you've maybe tested or you're ready to do a website. The first thing that you are going to need that most people think about is a domain name. So that is, sometimes it's called a URL. It is the .com or the .whatever else that is your website address. So if you have an existing website, congratulations, you don't have to worry about this step. But if you're starting something new, or maybe you're just, you want a separate website for this online offer, maybe you want to kind of distinguish this from your regular business. If you don't already have one, there are lots of places to buy them. You've probably heard of GoDaddy, Namecheap. You can buy them through Google. There's tons of different places. It doesn't really make a difference. It can be very inexpensive to very expensive, depending on what kind of name you're looking for. So it's worth it. And a lot of the big platforms have name generators where you can type in names and see if they're available, see what it would cost to buy them. It's typically going to be an annual fee. So if you see that fee and you're like, ooh, that's expensive, but I think I can do it, just remember there are annual fees to renew your domain. So you may not just be paying that one time. So be sure to read that fine print. But for most domains, you can get them for a couple dollars a year. I mean, they're not that expensive. When I bought onlinecourselegal.com, which is one of our domains, I think I paid $15, which is kind of on the high end. But that's that's kind of a keyword packed name. Typically the longer a domain name is, the less expensive it's going to be. Shorter ones that have really descriptive words are going to be expensive because when you think of like, shoes.com or something like that, travel.com, where those are going to be very expensive. Those probably are already taken. I have a client who, her business name is Boss Mom. And for years she wanted to buy the bossmom.com domain, but it was very expensive. So her domain is actually boss-mom.com. So, you can make your own decision of how difficult it is for people to find you versus how easy it is to type in a domain, but there can be a cost there. So the thing I want you to think about when you're choosing a domain, if this is your first time, is you need to make sure that you are not infringing someone else's trademark rights with your domain. And I think there's a lot of confusion and misconception here. People think, well, if the domain is available, it must be fine. No one would sell me a domain if it's infringing someone else's trademark. And that is just not right. Just because a domain is available doesn't mean that there's not another business out there with the same or a very similar name. So I recommend that when you're choosing a domain, you go ahead and do a basic trademark search. So that means I want you to Google it, take the words apart. If it's multiple words, put a space between them, throw it into Google and see what comes up, see what else. Or sometimes the domain name generators will show you, your domain is not available, but it'll show you variations that are available. That's kind of a clue to you. If the one that you wanted isn't available, it might mean there's another business already operating under that name. So it's worth taking a few minutes, doing a Google search, seeing if there's another business out there with the same or a similar name. And what's important here when you're doing your search is it only really matters if that other business is selling either the same products you're selling or kind of related products. So think about our piano teacher, for example. If she's wanting to set up, onlinepianocourse.com or something, I'm sure that one's already taken. But let's use that as an example. So that's pretty descriptive. It's unlikely that someone selling flowers is going to be using that name. But let's say we had something a little different. Maybe it was magnoliaclasses.com. So it's not obvious what kind of business that is. You could be teaching a lot of different classes under that type of name. So you would want to search and see if there is another business that also has Magnolia in the name. Are they also doing piano classes, or is it, again, teaching people how to arrange flowers or teaching people how to garden? The more similar the things that you're selling are, the more you need to worry about it. If it looks like you're pretty different, that's a judgment call. If it's a really giant company, you may want to worry about it more because they tend to be more aggressive with their trademark rights. But you want to just do some digging, do some searching, and then use your own judgment to see what you think the risk is that someone else is going to be upset and come after you. With my client, again, with the Boss Mom name, those are two really common words that are used in a lot of businesses run by moms who think they're bosses. And she actually owns the trademark to that name. And so we do a lot of policing in the marketplace. It's kind of like whack-a-mole, because you might see a website that's Boss Moms, so plural.com. That still infringes her rights. It's still, when you think about this, I want you to think about, would it be confusing if your customers were trying to find your website and they landed on that one? Would they not be sure if it was yours or someone else's? So that's still close enough. Or like adding the Boss Mom, those words don't really make a difference. But again, it's always a bit of a judgment call. So if you are making a big investment in moving your business online, or if you have a really pretty substantial business already that you're moving online, it's definitely worth talking with a lawyer at this point to make sure that you are not choosing a domain name that could get you in trouble later. Again, if you've got a bigger business, there's more risk. If someone sends you a cease and desist letter or threatens to sue you, you look like a bigger target because you've got some dollars. If you want to learn more about searching for trademarks, I have a whole podcast episode on this. It's episode 71. So definitely tune into that if you want to go on a deeper dive about searching for trademarks. But so we're going to do the Google search. I recommend going on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office website. Again, you're just trying to make sure there's not somebody out there who's going to pop up later and cause you problems, send you a cease and desist letter, tell you can't use your own domain. So do those quick searches. It shouldn't take you long at all. And then you can be really confident that you're choosing a great domain name that you can stick with for the long term. All right, the last thing I want to talk about in today's part one of this series is once you've got your website up and running, you're getting started, you want to make sure that you've got the right documents in place. So some of these are required by law. Not all of them are, but they're all important. So I want you to keep listening. I'm going to start with the one that is required by law, and that is a privacy policy. So if you are selling online, unless you're a truly local business and you are kind of restricting your delivery area. So maybe a restaurant wouldn't need a privacy policy if it's located outside of California and you never intend to sell to anyone in California. But this is a California law that requires a privacy policy. And for most of the businesses that I work with, once they start selling things online, they're selling them across all 50 states. So now you've got to comply with this California law requiring a privacy policy. What is a privacy policy? It just tells people who give you their private information, so that could be even a name and an email address. It tells them what you're going to do with their information. So are you going to just use it for your own business? Are you going to send them marketing emails? Are you going to sell their email address to someone else? Maybe do you have another business that's going to share this email list? Are you going to put it up on a billboard? I mean, there's all kinds of things you could potentially do with someone's private information. So the privacy policy, there's all kinds of requirements of what needs to be in it. I highly recommend just buying a template. Don't try and copy someone else's. It might not have all the right things, or they may have customized it for a business that's a little different than yours, and so it doesn't really work. We have a great template for this in our contract shop. So if you go to our website, which is below, awbfirm.com, you can get that up and running in about 20 minutes. It's very affordable. Regular price is $2.99 for that document. And we have a bundle with some of the other documents that I'm going to be talking about, where you can get that at a little bit of a discount. But so whether it's from me or someone else, although I think ours is really good, you need a privacy policy. And I highly recommend getting a template that is created by a lawyer who does this kind of work so that you know it's got all of the right things in it. The second thing that is not required but is a good idea to put on your website is what's called terms and conditions. And you've probably seen these like in the footer of other websites, especially if you go on a large company's website, it's definitely going to have all of these things. Terms and conditions are what I call just kind of the rules for visitors to your website. So how can they interact with your website? If you have a blog that allows them to leave comments, are there any rules about what you will and won't allow? Are you going to maybe allow people to submit things? Maybe you have a contest and you ask people to submit things through your website. You know, what are you going to do with that stuff? If you've got content on your website, like photos or blog posts or articles, do you have rules around how you want to let people use those? Can they copy them? Can they distribute them? Could they sell them? Or is that not okay? So there's all kinds of things that might go in your terms and conditions. Again, this is something that will be a little different for every business. So I recommend getting a template, making sure you fill it in and customizing it for your business. Some of the other things I'm going to talk about in just a minute are often thrown in with the terms and conditions. In our template, we have a lot of these things. It's not just terms and conditions. We include some other things. It's kind of a catch-all on a lot of websites where people throw all of their legal disclosures and disclaimers. So it's a good idea to make sure that you have terms and conditions that are really protecting your business the right way. So the next thing you'll often see, sometimes people break these out into a separate page. Sometimes it's all combined. Sometimes it's just like in the footer of the website. Lots of different ways to do this, but are disclaimers. So this is where you want to tell people, for example, if you're a doctor and you have a website, but maybe you're selling health and wellness coaching, that this is not medical advice. I am acting as a coach here. I'm not acting as a medical doctor. Or maybe if you are, for example, like me, a lawyer, you might want to say, this is not legal advice. This is just information. If you are a business coach or you offer business strategy or consulting, you might want to include what we call an earnings or results disclaimer there, saying, I'm not promising you're going to make $1 million. Everyone's results vary. I'm not guaranteeing any kind of results. If you are maybe a weight loss coach, you might put something there like, especially if you've got examples on your website, before and after pictures. These results are not guaranteed. Everyone, has different effects, and it depends on what you put into it. So those disclaimers, it's a good idea to have them somewhere. They can fall in with your terms and conditions, or you can put them somewhere else. But disclaimers are really important, especially if you are in one of these more regulated industries, and you want to make sure you're kind of protecting yourself. You're not overstepping your boundaries with what you're selling online. Another thing that you might need to have on your website is disclosures. So these are required in some instances if you are either receiving free products and you're posting about them on your blog or you're talking about them, or if you maybe are getting commission out off of the things that you're talking about. So we see this a lot with what we call influencers, who are basically paid to talk about products or paid to test things out, try them out, put them on their blog, put them on their social media. You're required to disclose if you are either being compensated to talk about something, you're getting commission, or if you received it for free or at a discount. That's required because the Federal Trade Commission thinks that people want to know if you may have been biased by receiving that compensation or receiving that free, vacuum that you posted about on your blog, that you may have been influenced by the fact that you didn't have to pay for it. So those are required by law, and you could have serious fines and penalties if you are posting about things and not disclosing that, and the same thing on your social media accounts. So those are really important. Again, sometimes those are thrown in with the terms and conditions. Sometimes they're elsewhere on the website, but either way, they need to be somewhere. Our terms and conditions template includes disclaimers and disclosures, so it's kind of all in one bucket. Another thing that you need to have on your website is copyright and trademark notices. So again, you may have seen these in the footer in small print. This just puts people on notice. It's not required by law, but it's a really good idea. If you've got beautiful content, either photos, graphics, blog posts, other resources on your website, videos like this one, it lets people know that you own the copyrights to them and that you intend to hold those copyrights, and it tells people whether they're allowed to use them or not. Same thing with a trademark notice. You may see the little TM or the R in a circle. You can put that at the bottom of your website, or you can put it, where you're actually using the trademark. Either way, but again, it's going to let people know, hey, I consider either this logo, this business name, this product name, I consider this to be a trademark. And you can put something like all rights reserved. Again, it's just going to keep someone later from trying to say, oh, I had no idea that she considered that those things were protected by copyright or trademark law. So we want to go ahead. A lot of this, the good news is everything I've talked about is kind of set it and forget it. You're not going to be updating your privacy policy very often. You're not going to have to redo this copyright notice. All of this stuff, it's a little bit of work on the front end, but then once you have set it up the right way, the great news is, you're kind of done unless you're making really big changes to things. If you are a retail store or you're doing e-commerce where you're shipping physical products, there's a couple other things I want you to think about, and you may want to put these on a separate page, is having really clear return, exchange, and shipping policies. So these can vary a lot, and you might want to get ideas from looking at other stores that you follow or that sell similar things to what you sell or that you think have a similar business model. But you want to be sure that those are spelled out really clearly on either if you're doing curbside pickup, for a more local store, or if you are doing true e-commerce, you want to make sure that you've got all of that spelled out very clearly. And then again, if you offer gift cards on your website or for pickup, and you've got any rules or regulations around those, can they be used with a discount or any other special offers? Some businesses have, rules around what gift cards can be used for and not used for, or when they expire, although you want to check your state law for that. But if you have any rules around gift cards, make sure that those are on your website as well. All right, that is going to wrap up part 1 of moving your business online. I hope this was helpful. If you have follow-up questions, I would love it if you would find us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Send us a DM, let me know, and I will be sure to answer your questions in a future live. And I want you to stay tuned. I'm going to be talking next week in part 2 of this series about kind of the before you go live. So this was all like getting ready. But the next step is, okay, I'm almost ready to go. What are the last things that I need to do? And we're going to get a little bit more into some legal nuts and bolts. So we're going to be talking about, do you need to have a contract with your customers or terms on your website that they agree to, and what that looks like for different types of businesses? How are you going to be taking payments? Are there any issues when you're doing credit card payments online? And then what do you need to do just especially for a new business, to just get set up the right way. Are there any rules or regulations around that? And then the last thing we're going to talk about next week is marketing, because you can't sell things if you're not telling people about them. And there are some rules that you may not know if you've been primarily a brick and mortar business or if you've never done business before. There are some specific rules around online marketing, email marketing, social media marketing that are important that you just be aware of as you're getting started. So I am going to end, because I forgot at the beginning, with my standard disclaimer, which was none of this was legal advice. I so appreciate if you watched all the way to the end. This was just information. Please don't rely on it as legal advice. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out. Our website below is the best way to get in touch with us. Or as I mentioned, you can DM us on Instagram or Facebook. And we do have a free reference, a free guide that goes with this episode. This is our 10-step checklist. So this is going to go more into detail of what I talked about today, but it's going to give you everything that you need to do if you are getting started with your business. And even if you're a little further along in your business, you may find that there are some steps that you may have missed. So definitely head over to the show notes for this episode. Those are at awbfirm.com/podcast and the number 139. That is this episode number. And I will talk to you guys again next week.